the world of wireless, if you follow it in any of the channels or social media or anything, it's definitely a polarizing world, just like general topics in the world today. Do we use lower data rates or not? There's just a lot of stuff out there that people are polarized about. Especially in the world. Did Han shoot first? And of course he did. If anybody knows what they're really talking about, Kirk or Picard? I think everybody's polarized about that one still. Is it less filling or does it taste great? And finally, should we or should we not do predictive designs? So let's just, for a few minutes, go down the road of what's a wireless design process look like. First, we get a hard copy of the floor plans from our customer for whatever the site's going to be that we're going to design. So nice floor plan, we can make notes on it, all that kind of stuff. Then we need to go grab multiple color pencils. So you want one for every channel, preferably, so that you can make sure you're channel mapping properly. Something to draw circles with. A coffee cup, you'll need that to be empty so you don't spill it. A solo cup, a compass, something like that. You want to use different color pencils for every channel so that you're making sure that you have your spacing properly. Then you're going to put your AP locations on the map, and then you're going to draw those nice little colored circles for each channel and make sure your overlap's good. And then you're going to send that layout to the customer. They're going to do the install. And then we're going to go perform a post-installation survey, and we're going to bask in the glory of an amazing deployment that we did. Wait a minute, that was 15 years ago. So what are we doing today around wireless designs, and how are we doing them, specifically within worldwide and kind of where we're going with it? So the first thing we're doing is we're still receiving that diagram from the customer, but this time it's in digital format. So either we get an AutoCAD from the customer, we get a PDF file, we get a PNG, something like that. So, it's got the entire building layout. I've got a PDF with all of the floors that I'm looking for, that kind of stuff, so that I can load it and actually do something with it. Then we're going to import those into Ekahau, which is our standardized survey utility at this point. And we're going to use either the AutoCAD import function, which is really helpful because then it sets my scale for me, it sets my floors, walls, all that kind of fun stuff. Or I'm going to manually go in and create the building and add those maps and walls and alignment points and all of that so that I have it set up properly. Then I'm going to start laying out my APs. So I've got my walls laid out, I've got nice predictions on what it's going to look like, and I'm going to start looking at my primary coverage, my secondary coverage. What am I, I've got to have those requirements up front of what I'm designing for as well, right? So what kind of capacity am I looking at? What kind of applications? And we'll talk about all this a little bit in just a few minutes, but, what kind of applications am I trying to do? You think about it in your house, all the stuff you have on the wireless network. Think about when you walk in the office, how much is actually wireless these days? And all of that has to get taken into consideration, which is what we're trying to do here and what we can do with the software. Then we still get our cool circles, but this time they're drawn by the software and they're a little more realistic than what we had with our old solo cup approach. Next thing we do is once we have this design completed, we can actually export this design with the AP locations and all of that and hand that over to the customer, hand it off to branch services to go do an install, for instance, hand it off to a partner, hand it off to the deployment team from PS, whoever is going to be doing the deployment. And then we have our design. And as part of that design, we've also got built-in predictive power levels, channel settings, stuff like that that we can look at. And will help us when we're doing the configuration of the controller with kind of what are some baseline power levels that we probably want to start at based on what we're seeing in the predictive survey or the predictive design with the walls and that type of thing in there. Then what we're going to do is we're going to do that installation, those configurations, all of that. Then we're going to use those same floor plans, but in a different, not in the same project, but a different project, but same floor plans, and we're going to do a validation survey. Then what we're going to do is we're going to be able to compare, okay, here's what our prediction was, and here's what our design started out as. here's what it is today after I did my validation survey and in the real world. What do they look like? Where am I lacking at? So I can use that as my gap analysis, and then I can begin to make adjustments onto power levels and that type of thing where needed to bring it up to what we need that to be around the requirements of what the predictive looks like, as well as what the requirements from the customer were of what am I designing this network for. Then we finally actually really get to sit back and bask in the glory of our successful deployment. So, at this point, this is kind of the process we're going through and what we're trying to get through and why we do it. So why do we do predictive designs? Obviously, new construction. I would say, and I'll let Mike chime in and Jen too, of the amount of predictive surveys we do and the amount of surveys we do, how many are like new construction or changes? I would say a very large majority of what we do are that way. We're going to use it also as a precursor for those AP on a stick surveys. So we're not necessarily using an AP on a stick to go out to every single AP location and take those readings. If the customer requires it, sure, we'll do it. But what I'm trying to do is I'm taking the predictive that I've already done, and then I'm going and spot checking those sites, and then taking my attenuation and loss readings of, okay, I'm in a hospital. How many times have we been in hospitals and there's lead walls that we don't know about, or there's exterior walls that nobody really knows about because the guy who is in facilities retired 20 years ago and nobody knows it. Just stuff like that. What are our readings looking like? And so then we can bring that back and change the predictive if we need to before we get on site, and then have to go back and do remediation afterwards, which is what we're really not wanting to do. Again, the gap analysis after a passive survey. So a customer has a current wireless network. Their requirements are changing. They're adding Skype on the desktop. They're going with a mobile first strategy. They're adding additional users. They're changing something in the environment. So we want to go get, what does the wireless look like today? And then we can do that gap analysis to go back and say, okay, based on your requirement of needing Skype on the desktop or wanting to go in a mobile first strategy, here's what we would need to do to remediate that network or redo a network. If it's a greenfield, we're pretty easy. There's no changes or anything that have to happen. It's just, here's what we're thinking it's going to look like. And then again, changes to the facility. So new walls get put in, retail layouts change all the time. It's summertime. Guess what? Retail's bringing in 400 cases of water, and all of a sudden wireless doesn't work. Well, with predictive designs, we can try to see that. We can know, okay, this is going to happen. I can put in attenuation and see what would happen to the coverage, and if we need to adjust it. Warehouses specifically, products moving around, and we can, somebody calls up, hey, I'm having this issue. Well, we can take the design and put it into the predictive and do our best guess, then go on site and actually see what's going on from there. Again, the requirements. So let's go back to just think about your house, what you have running. We're streaming, right? Netflix, Hulu, Amazon. We've got lights, we've got thermostats, we've got all kinds of stuff, cameras, all of that. Well, so do our customers at a larger scale, right? A lot of them compared to just a few in our homes. Even just walk around campus sometime when you're there. I mean, you'll see between work, in the office, how many people are actually tied to a cable? I would venture to say probably 5% or less. Everybody's moving around. EBCs coming in and out, guests coming in and out, just all of that stuff. The other thing is changes to the facility. I have, an auditorium. Well, I'm not getting really good coverage in there. So, I can do a predictive to see, okay, I've got 400 devices in here. What do I need so I can hit the capacity to do a streaming session in that auditorium? Things like that. It helps to know what you're walking into and be prepared when you get there.